70 miles southeast of Taranto. She turned into the wind. The 21 swordfish were divided into two waves, with 12 aircraft in the first and 9 in the second. The first wave was led by Flight Commander Kenneth Hooch Williamson in Swordfish L4A, with his observer Lieutenant Norman Blood Scarlett in the back. They took to the air at 20:35 hours. Operation Judgment was underway. It would be the first aerial raid from the sea against a fleet in a defended harbor. November 11th, 1940, Operation Judgment was in motion. During the flight towards Taranto, one swordfish became separated from the formation in some clouds. By chance, the aircraft piloted by Lieutenant Swain arrived almost 30 minutes before the other aircraft. It was soon detected by the Italian listening devices, and the defenders were ready for action. With the element of surprise lost, the remainder of the first wave were met with a ferocious barrage of fire. The swordfish flare droppers then went ahead and released their ordnance behind the battleships, so that they were silhouetted for the torpedo bombers against the bright magnesium parachute flares. Williamson led the attack in Swordfish L4A and crossed the harbor breakwater as he descended to below 100 feet. As the massive battleship Conte di Cavour loomed up in front of him, Williamson released his torpedo. Dead on target, it struck the Cavour behind B turret, but as the swordfish peeled away to starboard, it was hit by anti-aircraft fire and plunged into the harbor. Miraculously, Williamson and Scarlett survived the impact and was subsequently taken prisoner. The next two aircraft, L4C and L4R, aimed for the Vittorio Veneto, but both their torpedoes missed and exploded harmlessly near the battleship Andrea Doria. By now, the anti-aircraft fire was intense as the second flight came in with L4K in the lead. Its pilot, Lieutenant Kemp, dropped his torpedo at a range of 1,000 yards and immediately put his swordfish into a steep climb. Below him, his torpedo ran true and hit the battleship Littorio on her starboard bow. L4K was followed by L4M, the early arrival at Taranto, with Lieutenant Swain at the controls. Maneuvering around the barrage balloon wires and through the heavy flak, he dropped his torpedo at a range of 400 yards, striking the Littorio once more. The last torpedo-armed swordfish of the first wave also attacked the Littorio, but without success. The survivors turned for home, having severely damaged two battleships. Meanwhile, the four bomb-armed swordfish attacked the warships in the Mar Piccolo with little success because of defective bombs. But L4L, with Sub-Lieutenant Sara as pilot, managed to destroy a seaplane hangar nearby. The last swordfish of the first wave departed Taranto at 23:35 hours, as the Italians continued to spray shells and bullets into the air. 2 hours earlier, the 9 swordfish of the second wave, led by Lieutenant Commander Ginger Hale, took off from the HMS Illustrious. But two of the aircraft collided on the dark flight deck, and one of them was badly damaged. The other was quickly repaired and followed the other 7 about 20 minutes later. Then another swordfish succumbed to a technical problem and was forced to return to the aircraft carrier. As the remaining swordfish approached Taranto, they were met by a curtain of anti-aircraft fire. 2 flare droppers flew ahead to illuminate the targets in the Mar Grande. After dropping their flares, L5B and L4F bombed the oil storage tanks on the dockside. Hale led his 5 torpedo-armed swordfish in from the northwest. The Littorio was hit twice more, once again in the bow and once on the starboard quarter, but the torpedo failed to explode. In the firestorm, E4H was hit and Lieutenants Bailey and Slaughter were killed. The fire was so great and the aircraft flying so low that the Italian warships were firing at each other. Then Lieutenant Lee in L5H came flying past the mouth of Mar Piccolo and straight towards the battleship Caio Duilio. His torpedoes slammed home amidships, and the battleship immediately began to sink. The next swordfish, L5K, flown by Lieutenant Torrens Spence, was headed for the Vittorio Veneto. But luck was with the battleship as the torpedo went wide before exploding. The final swordfish then attacked the Veneto, but it also escaped destruction. The shore defenses fired thousands of rounds of ammunition, most without success. By 0300 hours, the last swordfish landed on the deck of HMS Illustrious. The planners of Operation Judgment had expected at least 50% casualties for the attacking aircraft, but in fact only 2 swordfish were lost and 2 air crewmen killed. With 3 Italian battleships sunk, it was a great victory. The morning after the raid on Taranto, news of its success spread across the Mediterranean fleet. In his laconic manner, Cunningham raised the signal on his flagship, "Illustrious, maneuver well executed." In addition, HMS Warspite hoisted the pennants, "All ships repeat signal Admiral is now flying." It was the greatest honor that any ship in the Royal Navy could receive. Admiral Leicester's plan had worked to perfection. But after seeing the first post-raid reconnaissance photographs, he wanted the swordfish to return to Taranto the next night and destroy the remaining battleships. The swordfish crews felt that they had done enough. Fortunately for them, the weather turned foul and flying became impossible. The Italians were now left to survey the damage. The Littorio had sunk by the bow after suffering 3 torpedo strikes. Remarkably, they salvaged the remains, and it returned to service just 5 months later. The Caio Duilio had been beached by its crew as it was sinking, but within 6 months it was also repaired. The Cavour had settled on the bottom of the harbor, and was not repaired before the war's end.